Hello and welcome to Alog Radio. It's 8th of February 2017, and on this day in 1952 Queen Elizabeth II is proclaimed Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, and all the other Commonwealth countries. If you're new to this, then let me explain. This is a virtual radio station. I feed you loads of information and facts to make your day. If you're up to your eyeballs in BS, if an SOB is pissing your tea, if you had a bad day, or if you just want something to listen to when you're doing something or working, then this is for you. I'll feed you loads of information, loads of facts, and try and make your day more interesting and more fun. So sit back or get on with what you're doing and relax and listen up. Did you know that woodlice, or I think Americans call them pill bugs, are actually crustaceans? They're not insects, they're not arachnids, they're not related to any of the insects you see or that you see flying or walking around. They're actually related to crabs and lobsters and shrimps, but they're like a terrestrial shrimp type creature. But they're not shrimps. They're part of the family. You know, they're part of the crustacean family, which is quite amazing. Here's another one. The 2022 World Cup final will be played in Lusail in Qatar, a city that does not exist yet. That's quite amazing. Just to remind you that I'm quoting from the website WTFfunfact.com. It's very interesting facts on this site. Here's another one. Subway once had to settle a lawsuit with angry customers who had proved each foot-long sandwich was really only 11 inches in length. It cost the company over $500,000 in legal fees, and each plaintiff earned close to £1,000 each. Wow. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the court case with McDonald's when a customer burnt themselves with coffee. I think it was publicised on Netflix as well. There was a lady that was sitting in a car in the passenger seat. It pulled over in the car park, and the coffee fell on her lap and burnt the skin on her lap, and she had to have skin grafts. And the reason that they are suing is not because of her dropping the coffee. It was because the coffee was too hot. It was there's like a legal regulations that guidelines for how hot to make coffee, because if it's like boiling hot, like 90 plus degrees, it would take your skin off, or it can cause some permanent burns, like second degree burns and so forth. So what she did is that they wanted to sue for the medical costs for having the treatment for the burns, and then the judge awarded them higher. He gave them $1 million just to make to send a message to McDonald's that it's not okay what they're doing. Send them a message, and then so it's quite a shock to the system. Judges can do that, you know. They can actually put the price up. They can say, no, why are you suing for $8,000? When you should get more. You should get just to teach them a lesson, so they stop burning other people. They can do that, and that's what happened anyway. I think it's on Netflix. So I watched it as well, and I heard about it a number of times. It was referred to a lot. People often, you know, they'll actually look at that. They'll say, why is this frivolous lawsuit taking place? It's too frivolous. And I say, no, it's not frivolous. It's they're having a cavalier attitude to people's health and safety. Someone has to do something about it. Yeah, anyway, back to the facts. The world's oldest dress was found in Egypt and is 5,000 years old. There's something about Egypt, isn't it? Like, they always find the oldest things in the world, and you wonder why. They never seem to. They always find it always comes from Egypt. Like the oldest comb, the oldest dress, the oldest everything. Here's another one. Arizona iced tea hasn't changed its 99 cents price since 1992. Wow, I guess it would have been a bit more expensive back then in 1992, and now it's cheap compared to other drinks. Some drinks are like, it's normal to be like £1.50, $1.50 or $2. Here's another one. There's actually a bay in Russia that used to be used as a rubbish dump for glass and porcelain, and it was a hazard because it was all sharp, it was full of like sharp edges. And over the decades, the wave action and the erosion wore the glass into pebble-shaped objects. So they're all they're shaped like pebbles, and they're all smooth and rounded. It's actually an area of natural beauty now. It's amazing how nature can make products out of things that are so ugly and hideous. Stephen Hawking, he's has a robotic voice, but he was offered to have a modernised voice, a more natural sounding voice, and he chose to keep it because he identifies with that voice. He feels like it's become part of him. So that's quite amazing. That makes sense actually. Like if you get used to a voice, and if you can't talk, and you get used to a robotic voice, you don't want to. It becomes a part of your identity. I don't know if I'd do the same though. Thomas J. Grasso, a twice convicted murderer, was executed by lethal injection in 1995. His last words were, "Please tell the media I did not get my SpaghettiOs. I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." So what happened is he had a last request for food, and he asked for SpaghettiOs, and they gave him spaghetti, and then that's his last words. He was complaining about that. I often wonder what's the most like the most painless way to kill a person. If you're an executioner, I'm guessing the most painless way is to slowly remove the oxygen from the air and replace it with nitrogen, because then they would have hypoxia, and they wouldn't know that they'll just drift off. Like it'd be like very painless, I reckon. They'll just fall asleep. The president of Uruguay, Jose Mujica, was considered the poorest president in the world and would donate 90% of his $12,000 monthly salary to charities, and would even wait his turn in public hospitals. I think Uruguay is a forward-thinking country. I think they legalized cannabis as well on every level. Like you can grow it, you can own it, you can sell it, and consume it. Funny enough, cannabis, I think it has lots of uses apart from as a drug. I think the stem can be made into paper, and it's actually a better material for paper than wood is, because it has a higher ratio of fibres to waste material, and you get a higher yield as well, because it grows to maturity within 1 year. So it's quite a useful product, and I think they have other uses for it. I think some of the chemicals in there that it produces, like some of the oils, can be made into plastics as well, biodegradable plastics, but and other types of plastics. It's an interesting plant anyway. It's very controversial, and often people overlook some of the benefits of this plant because of the stigmatism attached to it. I was reading some news articles the other day about Fukushima. Apparently it's still leaking radioactive material into the ocean and into the surrounding environment, the surrounding landscape. It's a very disturbing thing. And I mentioned in an earlier show that radioactive materials can be recycled. And there was actually a documentary on it as well on Netflix, that you can actually there's low energy. There's a way of harnessing the low energy waste of radioactive material, because it gives off a low energy radioactive waste. It's not, you can't harness it for heat, but you can. There's another way of getting the energy from it. Like you can use it to charge up things. You can use it to. You can get the put power cells there, and you can charge them up. I don't know exactly how they do it, but you can actually get like a consistent amount of power from nuclear waste, and so even waste is useful. And also nuclear weapons, they can be recycled into nuclear power stations, so they're not all that bad. It's just that you've got to be really careful about how the station runs, and also you've got to think about the half-life of the radioactive material, how if it's 10,000 years, 20,000 years, and how you're going to think ahead, how to prevent people from contaminate themselves in the future if they come into contact with that. One way would be to drop it into a volcano, I reckon, in my opinion, because if you drop in a volcano, it will probably sink to the bottom because it's heavy and it will go deep into the Earth's crust. It's heavier than the lava. Anyway, that's all I have to say today, but until next time, goodbye and take care.